Oh, hello. Okay, so today I have a kind of a simple idea, which I thought it would be kind of cool to talk about, and that is basically the idea behind like repetition, and also around the idea of like what's it like to shoot, is it street photography, photography of the world in the public space, whatever, in your own city. So for many years, basically I only felt like I could make a good picture if I was somewhere far, if I was somewhere like interesting and new and somewhere different, you know? And so a lot of the time when I was at home, I live in Portland, Oregon these days, like I just like couldn't like make images, or I would make them of my close friends and family, but in terms of like street photography of the world, you know, or just my environment. And I just didn't feel like I could make work that had anything unless I was somewhere interesting and new, you know, vibrant in some way. If I was in Mexico, or if I was in Spain, or if it's somewhere weird in Africa, or who knows, just some foreign city, New York City, you know. But over the years, and I mean pandemic, etc., you know, haven't been able to travel as much, and so it started to occur to me like, I need to make work here, and here being my home and what's familiar to me. And so like the act of repeating, going on the same walk, walking around the same set of city blocks, walking along the water again and again and again, you know, something about that repetition and remaking images of the same thing somehow allows one to start to see those things a little bit differently. And somehow the meaning can change as well. And often the meaning can go way deeper than if I was to just go to some foreign city and just make some images of whatever cool place I happen to be in. And in the past few years, I've had this practice of making work here at home in Oregon. I've been doing a photo project. There's a version, you can look at it on my website, it's called The River Wide, and it's all images made here in Oregon. Up and down the river, the Willamette River. And for me, some of that work has more meaning than anything I could have ever created in any foreign city ever. I mean, even in some ways, like it's more meaningful than any of the work I've ever made in my home country, South Africa, because this is an idea that's only cottoned on to me in my later years, whatever, I'm not that old. But so kind of what made me think about this recently was I was at the photo store and I was able to pick this guy up, which, as you can see, is this is a Fuji GFX50S. And right now I just have this little Nikon lens on there, which I'm manually focusing, which, you know, in a lot of ways, like the advantage and the bonus of the kind of newer GFXs is the autofocus and the stabilization, but you know, I get around that with this one because I'm just using manual focus. But this made me think about it, and I'm going to show some of the images that I took on a first day wandering around with this little setup. But what you need to understand is that I kind of bought that camera to have as a backup or a scanning camera, or maybe to sell to a friend, you know, at a good deal, because I got it for a great deal. But I own this guy, which is the, you know, this is the GFX100S. And in pretty much every way, arguably, this is technically a better camera. That said, this guy is an absolutely wonderful camera that was picked up for so little money. And it's such a wonderful camera to make so many things. I mean, the fact that it has this great grip, you know, the viewfinder EVF situation here is like interchangeable and stuff. There's wonderful things about this camera still, and it really can be bought for hardly any money. And I think the reason that I started to think about this idea of repetition in our familiar spaces, in our home cities that we all live in, that we all have to make our work in and live our lives in, and you know, the convenience of I can walk out my door, literally this door right here, and I can walk up and down the streets in my neighborhood, and I can start to create work. I can make things that have meaning to me. I can make things that are going to add up essentially to what I would call art. Whereas I'm not saying that's not possible if you just go to a foreign city and apply your craft as a street photographer there. But I would say that for me, I have found that the more connection I have to the place, to the geography, to my understanding of home, my understanding of where I fit within that, I find that the work has more depth and therefore more meaning. And for me, yes, we make images with cameras, and that's the technical act we're doing that turns us into photographers. But really, at the end of the day, I think we're only artists if we're creating new meaning and new understanding. And so I think we have a better chance of doing that in the work we do at home. And so, yeah, that's what I'd like to see more of from myself, and I'd like to see more of from other people out there, because so often I see these very beautiful images coming from far-flung corners of the world that are beautiful and rad and interesting, but at the end of the day, like, what are you actually saying? Like, what is it about? And that's the thing that I want to create more of, basically.